Few rock and roll conspiracy theories have stood the test of time like the Paul is dead controversy. In October 1969, a rumour began to circulate. Paul McCartney was dead. The Beatles singer and bass guitarist had been decapitated several years earlier in a car crash in November 1966. His record label, worried about Beatles album sales, had replaced him with a Scottish man called William Campbell, who had earlier won a Paul McCartney lookalike contest. Paul is dead panic swept America and England. So much so that Paul McCartney felt obliged to do a Life magazine cover story countering the claim. Or was that Paul McCartney on the cover? According to conspiracy theorists, the remaining Beatles left a plethora of clues in their song lyrics and on their album covers, confirming Paul's death. On the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, there is a drum skin. Hold up a mirror to the drum skin and the word hearts becomes he die. He die with an arrow pointing up to McCartney. In the gatefold of Sgt. Pepper's, Paul wears a patch which appears to read OPD, British police jargon for officially pronounced dead. And on the back cover, Paul is the only Beatle facing away from the camera, with the words "without you" coming from his head. Then the conspiracy theorists continue their argument, pointing to the cover of Abbey Road. There is a white Volkswagen parked on the side of the road. Its number plate reads 28 if. As in, Paul McCartney would be 28 if he was still alive at the time of Abbey Road's release. And the LMW? That's an acronym for Linda McCartney Weeps, a reference to Paul McCartney's grieving widow. Also notice Paul McCartney is holding a cigarette in his right hand. But Paul McCartney was left-handed. Explain that one, skeptics. This cover of the rare Beatles album Oldies features a car driving toward Paul's head, a reference to the car crash and the subsequent decapitation. And on the drum skin, advance one letter in the alphabet for O and you have P. Advance one letter in the alphabet for L and you have M, as in Paul McCartney, followed by the word dies. Then conspiracy theorists come to the White Album. White is the traditional colour of mourning in many cultures. And play the White Album track, Revolution number 9, backwards, and you'll hear this secret message. A photo inside features a set of ghostly hands reaching for McCartney. And in this photo, a shadow covers a small scar the lookalike received, perfecting his Paul look with plastic surgery. Another track on the album, Glass Onion, contains a further clue.
Well, here's another clue for you all. The walrus was Paul.
This is a reference to the cover of Magical Mystery Tour, where one of the Beatles, who we now know is McCartney, is dressed as a walrus, the only character on the cover who is black. And black is the traditional colour of mourning in many cultures. Then we come to yesterday and today. Turn it on its side, and Paul McCartney is in a coffin. And on Rubber Soul, it's as if the Beatles are looking down into a grave. Fairly compelling stuff. Which brings us to an explosive new revelation in the dead Beatles saga. Tonight, for the first time on Music Jamboree, we present possible evidence that George Harrison is dead. Exhibit A. Look at the front cover of this magazine. This photo may seem innocuous at first, but take a closer look. Around the bottom of the photo, near all that writing, is a dark black shadow where his jugular vein would be. A shadow perhaps covering up a bullet hole? Also notice in photos of the real George Harrison, for example in this one where he's walking behind the fake Paul McCartney, George Harrison has a beard. Here, he has no beard. And viewed from above, it's as if Harrison is looking up at us from a hospital bed or a slab in a morgue. Coincidence? Well, take a look at this. Hold up this copy of the Herald Sun to a mirror. Any mirror will do. Now write down the letters you see. Said? Elta Eb? Sound like gobbledygook? Perhaps. But now hold up those letters to a mirror. The surviving Beatles giving another clue to us all? And what of this clue on the cover of the CD single reissue of George Harrison's My Sweet Lord? The photo in the middle of the cover is a flower. In some cultures, flowers are put on the end of gravestones when there is someone dead. Compelling evidence of George Harrison's gruesome death? Or a crazy conspiracy theory? You be the judge.
Did you know John Lennon and Ringo Starr are now the only surviving members of the Beatles?